In the year 73 CE, the sun rose over the Judean desert, scorching the rocky cliffs and the narrow paths that led to the ancient fortress of Masada. High above the plains of the Dead Sea, Masada stood like an unyielding crown of stone, its walls carved into the mountainside, a refuge and a prison in equal measure. Within its walls, nearly 1,000 Jewish rebels, known as the Zealots, huddled in anticipation and fear, knowing that the Roman army, the mightiest force in the world, was closing in on them. For years, they had resisted, surviving against impossible odds, defying an empire that had already crushed Jerusalem and burned the Second Temple to the ground. Their leader, Eleazar ben-Yor, moved among the defenders with a solemn dignity, rallying spirits while knowing that the end was near. Every wall, every tower, every storehouse of food was a fragile barrier between life and certain death. Below the cliffs, Roman legionaries assembled in disciplined formation, their armor glinting in the desert sun, siege engines glinting like weapons of light. They had encircled Masada with meticulous precision, determined to starve the rebels into submission. Legionnaires constructed a massive ramp of earth and wood, inching ever closer to the fortress with relentless patience and methodical engineering. Day after day, the Romans advanced, the clatter of tools and the pounding of timber echoing across the barren plains, a grim drumbeat of inevitability. The Zealots watched from above, their eyes scanning the encroaching menace, their hearts pounding with defiance and dread. Inside Masada, families whispered of escape plans that had no hope of success, of tunnels that might conceal them but could not hide them from the eyes of the Romans. Food stores dwindled despite careful rationing, and the sun baked the defenders into a suffocating heat. Still, they refused to surrender, bound by a code of honor, by faith, and by the terrifying knowledge that capture meant enslavement or death. Eleazar convened a council, speaking in hushed yet commanding tones, explaining that death on their own terms was preferable to subjugation by the Romans. A plan was made, chilling in its resolve. Each family would take its own life, and then the defenders would destroy what remained, leaving no witness for the conquerors. The siege reached its climax as the Romans finally pushed the ramp high enough to assault the fortress. They expected resistance, a bloody battle, the Zealots fighting to the last man. What they found instead was silence. Masada was eerily empty. Inside, every defender had followed Eleazar's plan. Men, women, and children had perished by their own hand, leaving behind a fortress free of living inhabitants, but full of evidence of the horror they had endured. Bodies were discovered in orderly groups, storerooms filled with provisions untouched, and personal belongings carefully preserved, a testimony to the deliberate nature of the tragedy. The Romans, though victorious in possession, were haunted by the spectacle. They had conquered a fortress, yet the defiance and determination of the Zealots lingered in their minds, a reminder that victory does not erase courage. Masada became legend almost immediately, a symbol of resistance, faith, and the terrifying human capacity for both survival and self-determination. The story was passed down through generations, retold in whispers, inscribed in historical accounts, and immortalized in Jewish memory as a testament to the unbreakable human spirit. Archaeologists would later uncover the remains of walls, palaces, and storerooms, along with the scattered artifacts of a civilization fighting to survive against impossible odds. The Roman siege ramps still stand as silent monuments to strategy and engineering, while the empty fortress speaks louder than any battle cry. Masada is more than stone and sand. It is a narrative of courage, fear, faith, and the ultimate price of freedom. It is a story that echoes across centuries, reminding humanity that sometimes resistance is defined not by victory, but by the unyielding choice to die on one's own terms rather than live in chains. Even now, standing atop the cliffs of Masada, the wind carries whispers of those final days, a haunting chorus of bravery, despair, and the undying human will to remain free. The siege of Masada remains one of history's most extraordinary tales, a chronicle of how a few can stand against the many, how faith can fortify the soul, and how defiance can endure long after the last life has faded. It is a monument not to conquest, but to the spirit that refuses to bow. A story that challenges us to consider the lengths we would go to protect our honor, our families, and our freedom. Masada's silent walls continue to inspire, terrify, and remind the world that the human heart is capable of acts both unimaginable and unforgettable. Like and subscribe so you don't miss even more interesting historical facts.